Hey guys, it's Ricardo here with Coldwell Banker, Destin to 30A. So I'm going to break down for you guys three really big markets. We're going to take a look at Destin, Florida, 30A, known as Santa Rosa Beach, and Panama City Beach. I'm going to dive deep into the reasons why people are buying in each market, or why they're even looking at each market. You know, there's a lot of different driving factors that Destin may bring that Panama City Beach doesn't have. And you know what? There are some things that Panama City Beach has up and coming that is really attracting other people. And some markets are also growing quicker than others, right? So I'm going to break down each city, starting with Destin, Florida. So I'm over at Coldwell Banker. We have locations in Destin and 30A. I'm over at the 30A office myself in Destin all the time because we have tons of listings there. One thing that you'll notice about Destin is that it has a dedicated fan base. Everyone comes here every single year, regardless of the economy. There's always going to be bachelor parties, people that want to come on boats. It's always going to be a crowd that's coming back to see it more because we have Crab Island, the Yetis, we have AJ's on the harbor, and it's really awesome that you get to walk the entire harbor walk and see all the boats coming while you're eating, watching the sunset, and depending on the holiday, you may even see fireworks. So that is Destin, Florida, the world's luckiest fishing village. Now, if you're coming here to say, hey, I'm looking at moving to Destin, you know, what's there to do, or why would I even buy here, or who's even buying here? Well, the market is split up in a few different ways, right? You have the primary home market, and then you have the secondary home market. I want to start off by talking about the primary home market if you're looking to make a move here in Destin more permanently and kind of choosing your location. So Destin, Florida, you have the harbor, and then you have a newer portion which splits off. You'll notice it's around Kelly Plantation or the Commons, right? The harbor, it's going to be a little bit older homes. There's a lot of natural beauty because you get these great big oak trees and these large lots that are level, some of them directly on the water. You'll notice that the lots or the houses off Calhoun Avenue in Destin, those are not deep water slips. So if you have a boat, that's not the place to buy. You want to buy over in Noriega Point, which is also a primary but also a rental location, and I'll go a little bit into that. It's one of the unique features that Destin, Florida has to offer. So going back into the primary market, kind of near the harbor, you're going to find a lot of homes there around like the $400,000 to $700,000 price point, anywhere between 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 1,800, all the way up to, you know, 5,000 square foot estates. It's a big mix, and you'll notice that the homes were built in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. The majority of the building was probably done in the 90s and early 2000s. And then if you have a home in Destin that's built, you know, above 2015, that's kind of rare just because most of Destin was built out, you know, 20 years ago. That's the reality. So these homes, they're right next to the school. They don't have any HOAs. They do have walking sidewalk. There's a lot of families and communities around. And if you like being next to the water or close to the water with, you know, things to do, like if you have a boat, for example, and you live in this area, you don't have to get a boat slip if your driveway is big enough. A lot of the homeowners, they're just going to park their boat, you know, right in front of their driveway. They're typically longer and extended in these areas that I'm referring to, which is really nice. Even if you have an RV or if you have jet skis, you have the space to do this in this area around Calhoun Avenue in Destin, kind of closer to the harbor. So if that's what you're wanting, more of a relaxed old feel Destin, this is where you're going to want to buy as a primary. Now, the newer part of Destin, which is Kelly Plantation, Regatta Bay, and by newer, I mean, you know, there's still homes that were built in the late 90s, early 2000s, but this newer construction is around like, you know, the early 2000s into 2010s, and you know, they're still building out into now 2020 into 2025. This is going to be more of a high-end community, right? So if you're someone that wants a golf course, likes horses, like equestrian, like Kelly Plantation is actually one of the one and only areas, maybe in the entire area, that built a very affluent community around an equestrian golf course with bay bay access, and it's a luxury community that offers really big lot sizes, so you don't feel like you're on top of your neighbor. And there's some houses in Kelly Plantation, which is a gated community, but within the gated community, there's another gated community. So you can kind of get a feel for that area, that you're going to be spending around, you know, 800,000 to 1.5 million if you want to have some options. The options between 800 to 1.2 are going to be, you know, smaller size lots. They may not even offer pools, and they're going to be around like 1,800 to 2,500 square feet. That's on the beginning portion of Kelly Plantation, like leaning loops, like right before that. And you're going to work to like the middle part of Kelly Plantation, kind of like Stonebridge area, San Myrtle. San Myrtle is a little bit closer to the end, and that's when you start to notice the really big homes, like on Captain's, Breakwater, things like that. Those are the massive estates. But once you kind of get around like the Stonebridge area, you start to work around like the 1.4 to around $2.6 million price point. These are the more mature homes, right? So they're going to be anywhere between 2,900 square feet to 4,500 square feet. Some of them are going to be built with ICF construction, custom build, you know, Arthur Ruttenberg style. You're going to see some of those builds there that they can withstand 150 plus mile per hour winds. Like you could hit it with a brick and it's not going to go away. You know, little piggy ain't going to blow this away in the wind, crying wolf, basically. So that's the type of construction that we have in Kelly Plantation. If you want to purchase right next to Kelly, there's something or another community called Regatta Bay. I would say I like Kelly Plantation personally, but it's honestly a preference thing. Regatta Bay has a similar feel. I don't think is as upscale as Kelly Plantation, and by that I don't mean that it's not as nice. I just think there's crazier homes in Kelly. Like you can have 10, 15, 18 million dollar listings over in Kelly. I think once you get to Regatta, you kind of cap out, you know, around like the 3 to 4.5, $5 million price point. And there's not as much new construction or as custom builds, but it's still a really good community because just like Kelly Plantation, it's a golf community, golf cart friendly, all in one. It's gated on every side. They keep it very nice, mature, and clean. I mean, it's in the top 3 of Destin if you want to move. The only other community that I can think of other than Regatta Bay and Kelly Plantation is Emerald Lakes, and Emerald Lakes is not even equivalent to that in my opinion. There's homes there between 500,000 and they kind of top out around 1.2 million, but it is another golf course community, does not offer the boat slips or the waterfront like in Kelly Plantation do. And in Kelly Plantation, you do get really deep water. There's some boat slips that I've seen there, definitely between like the 60 to 90 foot mark, like full on fishing charter boats, which is really nice. So those are my top 2 communities for Destin as far as the primary side from the luxury perspective. And then if you want to just purchase under 700, we're going to look at Calhoun Avenue. Now, lastly, the last part of Destin, which is probably the most exciting part of Destin. And by that, I mean, you know, you're going to have short-term rental, you're going to have people buying from different states, and you're going to have primary homeowners. This is known as Noriega Point. This is where all the deep water slips are, or the majority of them. You can very well have, you know, 40 to 100 foot boats, several boat slips, and you can also have jet ski slips, plus paddleboarding, canoes, kayaks, like the whole setup on your dock with double balcony as well, so you can oversee fireplace, cooking station, you know, like the whole 9 yards as far as how those homes are set up. And then you get like a really nice infinity pool kind of overlooking. That's kind of what the waterfront lifestyle of Noriega Point and Destin is offering. Not many people are renting those homes. Most of the rentals are happening actually with the condos in Noriega, or more towards like Destin Point, like off Waverly Place or Land's End. That's kind of more of a mixed rental community with some primary homeowners, but the reality is most of them are short-term rentals. So if you want to kind of avoid that, people kind of buy the homes in the $2 to $6 million price point in Noriega to kind of stay away from that. Otherwise, you're going to see kind of like a strong rental market in the $500,000 to $2 million price point in Noriega with some really good rental numbers. And that's kind of the big reason why people like buying in Destin, because the market has adjusted, I would say at least 20% from 2022. And I'm going to be honest, on the rental side, and this isn't like a primary homeowner's perspective, but just like a general rental or it's like your second property, we're starting to see the housing prices adjust back down to 2021. I'm seeing some things like on Crystal Beach, which is the beach part of Destin. It's literally crossing 98. So if you live in Regatta Bay, you cross 98 and you hit Crystal Beach, right? So it's really convenient. Same thing with Kelly Plantation. You get out of Kelly Plantation, you drive 3 minutes, you hit the Henderson. It's a luxury resort, so a lot of people go there to get massages, wind down. There's Lazy River, but that conjoins to Crystal Beach, which is really where the number #1 rental community or rental area of all of Destin. Mostly it is single family homes, so you can kind of see yourself paying anywhere between $850 to $2 million kind of for your entry price points. Golf front homes, you're probably going to be about $3.5 to $4.5 million as entry, but really the sweet spot's going to be about like $5 to $7 million for Destin. And then new construction, you can kind of see anywhere between the $9 to $12 million mark. So you can kind of see how the different areas of Destin as a market as a whole come together from a primary standpoint, from a secondary home standpoint, and also a rental standpoint. And I know you're probably saying, hey, Ricardo, now I want to know kind of like the numbers. How is Destin? Destin in general is a stronger rental market with appreciation on the side. So I think if you're looking to buy right now in Destin from an investment standpoint, you can purchase something at a good price that's reasonable, that's going to cash flow or at least break even in this economy with good entry. On a good market, Destin has been appreciating about 7 to 8% a year, and it does keep a consistent rental income. I would say this market has done a lot better than the surrounding markets. So if you're looking in Destin from rentals, it would be a good time. Things are adjusting and people kind of just want to let go of some of their things. Now on the primary side, sub 700,000, it's adjusting. There's really not many options, so that market has kind of stayed a little bit more gridlocked. There's not as much movement in my opinion. It kind of just adjusted overall. The luxury market, kind of like, you know, Kelly Plantation, Regatta Bay, and some parts of Emerald Lakes and Emerald Bay, they're kind of still trending at a good sweet spot, especially at 800 to 1.5. Those have adjusted like, you know, 10 to 15% from the peak, but they're still selling, and a lot of people are still paying cash in those communities. So I don't really think it's going to be too much of a adjustment, right? Because they don't have to sell, you know, they don't have a mortgage, you know, they've done well pretty much over their life. So we haven't seen too many situations there. So that kind of wraps up the Destin market. Now, 30A is completely different than Destin. So everything you've heard goes out the door. You know, 30A, which is the beach side of Santa Rosa Beach, they don't have boat slips. They don't have deep water. You know, you're not going to be parking your boat on the beach and, you know, putting your 90-foot boat into the water like you can in Destin. There's areas where you can do like boats on the beach, but they're very small. So if you're like a yacht guy, 30A is not going to be your choice on the beach. You're probably going to want to go to the north side of Santa Rosa, which is the bay, but it's not going to offer anything that Destin is from that perspective. But what 30A does have to offer, in my opinion, it does have more, you know, dune lakes. We also have different landscapes that Destin and Panama City Beach are not going to offer, just because of the amount of forest that's in that area. I think that they try to keep it more geared towards nature and respecting their needs. So we don't have as many high-rise condos in 30A. The developments, they're built out, but you'll see they're only built out in certain areas. It's not like as much concrete on 30A as I guess you could say in Destin, where it's truly built out in every perimeter. 30A still has some room to grow, and it still is growing, but I don't think they're going to compromise what they set as far as the boundary on development, just because it's a much higher end area. So I'm going to put it to you this way. The average price point on 30A is around 2 million, more or less. I mean, the average price point in Destin, you could very well get something around like the million mark. And honestly, it's lower than $1 million, but I'm just giving you that as perspective. 2 million goes a long way in Destin. It really does. It puts you up in the top 5 percentile for that market. On 30A, you're probably in the 50%. You're probably in the middle of the pack, right? Everyone's looking for what you're looking for. Most of the people that come into that market tell me, hey, Ricardo, I want to find something, you know, around like the 2 to 3 million mark, around these areas, right? This is very normal, and it's not going to be like, yes, you're going to have access to the best properties. Unlike Destin, if you want to have access to the best properties, and I mean like the absolute best, you're going to have to spend at least 7.5 to 10 million just to get you there. Like, that's the stairway to heaven. Like, you start to see good product at 7.5 to 10. But if you want to see like the trophy of the trophy, the highest of the highest on 30A, you're going to need to be 10 to 15 million. And I'm going to be honest with you, I can show you some product inventory that's in the 20, 25, and $30 million price point here, you know, that could really rock your socks. So that's as high as 30A goes, whereas Destin really kind of caps out at 10 million. I mean, there's really not that many properties in 10 million in Destin, and much less at 5, you know, so like it just starts to tick up from there once you go into 30A, right? So now that you know that the price point difference, I mean, really it's at least 2 to 3 times more expensive from buying a golf front home. Most of the golf front properties on 30A are around starting 7.5 to 10, and land value on 30A for golf front is around $4.5 to $7 million. So if you want a new construction home on the Gulf on 30A, you're probably going to be spending around like 9.5 to around 13 million. And if it's a really custom product, I wouldn't be surprised if it's pushed as much as 13 to 15 million, just because the finishes are that much more upscale. So that's as high as 30A goes, and let's start working our way down. So if you're in the $5 to $10 million price point, you still have a lot to play with on 30A. I would say you have access to about 85% of the inventory. 90% of the inventory in this price point. So you can pretty much pick and choose where you want to be. If you want to be in Rosemary, Alice, whatever city, location, Gulfront, we can pretty much work and find what you need at that price point. It's just more about where do you want to be, the exclusivity. Like for example, I have some clients that own some homes right now around like the $3 to $4 million price point, brand new, done to the nine. So like, hey Ricardo, the only way I'm selling this is if I can find something that's exactly the same that I can build or that's already built with these specifications. Right? So I'm trying to show you a perspective. It's all about relationships and long-term building on 30A. A lot of our clients already own something that they really cherish and trophy for their family, right? So they're trusting us and that timing. Everything for them is about timing. It's not about money. It's about timing. That if it works out for them, they're willing to make these transitions, right? So now that you see kind of how the mindset on 30A is, you'll now comprehend how the inventory comes up here, right? People are selling for different reasons. I'm not talking about builders are building, 10, 20, 30 properties all around. I'm exempting this market. The reality is the reason most people sell on 30A is because they've owned for a long time and it's just time to let go. They pretty much say, hey, I want to get out of the market, or I just want to downsize my portfolio and take some cash out, and this is what I'm looking to do. They've held it for generations, 10, 20, 30 years. The family's not coming down as much. It's not being used as much. As far as an investment, they just want to liquidate it. 3, which is a scenario that happened 2 years ago. People put a lot of money into the market and they were trying to make a quick buck by building or flipping, and now they're stuck. And then 4, you have a scenario that they're looking to upgrade or kind of get into their forever home into 30A. So those are kind of like the 4 scenarios that I'm seeing right now from like the general market, people buying there, not like builders and people doing multiple projects just trying to move money constantly. So now that you understand that, you'll see that at all these different price points, right? When you get to above like 7 million, these people don't have to sell. And if you're shopping at this price point, I'm trying to put this into perspective. They already have money. They don't have to sell. And if they look to sell, they don't always want to put their properties on the market either. And if they do go on the market, they're very particular about the price that they're getting because they know what they have. So when you're buying on 30A at this upper echelon price point, you're looking at something that cannot be built again because the land isn't there. The neighborhood just doesn't have any more inventory as far as land to build because it's been completely done and this is the last product there. So that means you may be getting one of the last new construction homes, overlooking the water and the lake, which is a trophy asset. And at that point, there's no comps. So it's just what you're willing to pay, right? So now you can kind of see and understand that, hey, when I'm shopping in this market, yes, it's about the money and sure, things have to make sense, but we're looking at products that aren't being built out constantly or that don't even come, to the market, like a Bugatti, right? There's only so many people that get an allocation, and it's not just about money. It's about relationship and just understanding that market and what those offerings are giving you and your family as the new buyer and what it will do for the new generations. Like, for example, sure, maybe you get a great tax write-off, but maybe your family will come here for the next 10 years and you'll see their sons and your daughters grow and you'll see their kids have kids. And then you'll see all the memories that they'll make here and you'll tell them a story. Hey, I bought this 10 years ago with this vision, and it's not going to matter how much money it's worth. Even if they offer you 20 million, I don't want you to sell it. You see where I'm getting at this price point? That's the mentality of the 7.5 and above. When we start to get more down to earth, which is around like, 3.5 to 7, I would say that price point, yes, it is generations, but they're not holding as long. You can maybe see those being sold on a 2 to 4 year basis. They are very nice neighborhoods and the products are beautiful. Like water sound comes to mind, watercolor comes to mind, Rosemary, like those parts of 30A, you'll see like that type of inventory sold every 2 to 5 years. So it's not the end of the world, but those markets are not building as much either. So you kind of have to be conscientious about when opportunity arises to take advantage of it. And again, you're buying into an atmosphere that's over 1,000 a foot, right? So if you see a product with potential and like 3.5 to 7, and I'm going to give you an example, right? Let's say this product is selling for about like 19, like let's say new construction